everyone, it's the Beast, and welcome back to the Beast On. We're on YouTube, and we're back. I know it's been a long time. I'm sorry it's been a long time. I know I wanted to get more content out there, man. I wanted to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of February, but then the pandemic hit, and I've just been all over the map as far as what I've been doing day to day, and also just my emotional state and mental state and physical state and all of that stuff. But finally I found a story I wanted to cover that I felt like would be really important for everyone out there to see. And let me give you the backstory. So you guys know for 7 years I worked at 790 The Ticket, which went through many changes. Started out as Lincoln Financial, then it was bought out by Entercom, then we merged with CBS. But over that time there, I started out as just a part-time talk show host, and then I moved my way up into more and more powerful positions until by the last few years that I was there, I was the assistant program director of The Ticket and WQAM. And throughout my 7 years at The Ticket, one of the people that was incredibly integral in me getting my job done, in me succeeding, was someone by the name of Vickie Aguirre. And Vickie's one of those people that you will never hear on the radio or see in any of the, big things going on. She works behind the scenes. Her title was traffic director, not traffic as far as cars going vroom, vroom, vroom. Traffic as far as making sure that all the spots run, that all the sponsorships are done at the right time. It really is all the stuff that makes the radio stations go and make money. That's basically what the traffic director is responsible for keeping track of and making sure they happen. And so my job, first as program coordinator and then as assistant program director, was to work like hand in hand with Vickie every moment of every day to make sure we executed exactly what was supposed to be. That was what we're in. So I was in her office all day, every day. I was on the phone with her. When there was an issue, I had to be the guy that called her and whatever. Vickie is one of the nicest, most awesomest people I know, and not just like you could say that about everyone, but really, truly, like someone who I really just have a ton of respect and love for. I think, and it's because not only is she really good-hearted and just a great person, but she was really overly competent at her job, which I was not. But in this industry, you a lot of times will find people that are in positions that either shouldn't be there, shouldn't have been put there, got a promotion that they shouldn't have. Vickie was the opposite. Vickie was so much more than a traffic director and could have done anything she wanted in this industry. Just so really, in my 20 plus years of being in media, I don't know that I worked with someone who was more just competent and able and awesome at their job. So to be able to have that person by your side, and not only when times are good and everything's cranking, but when you fuck up and she's got to be the one to kick your ass in gear. Thank God for Vickie. A lot of times she was a life savior for a million of us. And so when I found out that Vickie had gotten COVID-19 and had a rough time with it, but then gotten to the other side, I really wanted to tell her story. And I wanted her to tell her story. So after she posted a pretty heartfelt Facebook post, I reached out to her and asked if it was okay if I could interview her for this channel. I just want you to watch and learn from Vickie's story, listen to her story, and hopefully there's something that you can connect with in her story. So without further ado, let's switch on the Skype and get Vickie Aguirre on the video monitor. Well, this interview I've been looking forward to doing for a little bit now. When I found out that someone I knew and friends with, worked with for a long time, had gone through the experience of having COVID-19. So I bring you the lovely and amazingly talented and someone who would keep my ass in gear for the most part at the radio station. Vickie Aguirre joins us. And
Hi,
Vickie, first, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good.
All
A
right, well
little bit
that's
of a cough left over, but I would say I'm like 90 to 95% back.
all right. That's good. You look good. I
Yeah,
mean, the hair looks good.
thanks.
Everything looks. You look glowing. There's. All right, good. Um, so take us through. I really wanted to talk to you because you put a really heartfelt message on Facebook. I know, at least to me, it was really a surprise that you had gone through this. Although we all felt something was kind of up when you didn't join us for our big virtual happy hour. Um, but but
Yeah,
I'm guessing that all explains it now.
yeah.
You put up this really heartfelt Facebook post, and when I read it, I was like, man, I want to share Vickie's story so that other people can know what happens when you go through COVID-19. That it's not a hoax. It actually does exist, and there's a
Very much
reason.
not a hoax.
Right, there's a reason why we're all staying home, and it's not maybe just having a couple sniffles, and that's about it. So let's start with where it all started for you. When did you start feeling your first symptoms?
So my first real symptomatic day was March 23rd. I didn't feel great the night before. It was a Sunday night, and I was kind of feeling just a little off. But, I thought nothing of it. I went to bed. And when I woke up the next morning, I had crippling body aches. Like, the only thing I can compare it to is if you've ever had really severe dehydration where your muscles are just like clenched. Like my joints hurt, my muscles hurt for the first 2.5 days, horribly. Um, and then that sort of lessened a little bit. And so I thought I was starting to improve. So those first 2 days I was in that state. And then by Wednesday, I had a bit less of body ache, but then my fatigue was just awful. I completely lost my sense of taste and had no appetite. I started to cough and sneeze a little bit, but I didn't have, which back then, a month ago, they kept saying that, one of the major symptoms was a sore throat, which I never had. So I was just like, all right, I just picked something up. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Let's see. So that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I just wasn't improving. I wasn't getting worse, but I wasn't getting any better. And the fatigue was pretty bad. So at that point, I think that Friday, I made like a WebMD, like teledoc call.
Right.
And I spoke to a doctor and I gave her my symptoms. And she told me basically I was borderline symptomatic for COVID. And that if I could take care of myself, that I should try to quarantine myself. And luckily I live alone, so I wasn't exposing anyone to anything. So that's what I did. And then the next day I got worse. And now we're talking, that's day 6. I started getting a fever, which I hadn't had a fever since I couldn't tell you when. So I didn't know what was happening. I just
So you,
started feeling.
so you didn't have a fever when you were having your muscle aches and all the other symptoms. That came later.
No, right.
Wow.
And so I didn't know what a fever I didn't recognize it as a fever. I was just like, I felt terrible. And luckily I have a friend who's an EMT. So I called him and I said, I feel really, really bad. And he's like, go ahead and take your temperature. And I was at like 102 high. So he was like, just get in the shower. You need to cool off really fast. Drink some like cool water, lay down, don't cover up. So at that point, I have a cousin, incidentally, who's also a doctor, but she works in Tampa. She started FaceTiming me and like kind of walking me through it for the next week, daily FaceTime calls with a doctor. Thank God I have access to that, but I had no idea what to do because all you can really do is take Tylenol. You can't take anything else. I was thinking of taking a nasal spray, and she's like, nope, you can't take anything with a steroid either. So you just, if you can breathe, which thankfully I could, you just have to muscle through it because they can't do anything for you at a hospital. So for the next 3 days, once I started getting the fevers, my body had a really hard time maintaining like an even body temperature. So I couldn't cover up, but I was freezing. So I was just shivering, and anytime I would put on a sweater or a blanket, my fever would start to rise. So those were the worst days, definitely, because I was just miserable.
And how long of a period was that? From you started with the body aches, and then it progressed, and then there's the fever, and you have the chills. How long of a period was that?
So it all started Monday. By this point, it's the following Monday.
Okay, a week.
And I'm talking to my cousin, and she's like, you're in the middle of it. It sounds like you're going to be sick for probably the full 2 weeks. And when you hear that, it's just like, it's horrible because you're already a week in, and it's like, it's been very hard. So I just had to stay as calm as I could. My anxiety was making it 100 times worse because I was feeling a little bit of restrictive breathing. I did have a little bit of a rattle in my chest, but I could breathe. I could take deep breaths. I was never not able to breathe. It's just you feel a strain. And so naturally, if you suffer from any kind of anxiety, especially now everyone's kind of anxious, that just doubles down on that pressure. So thankfully, I have like a small dose Xanax prescription here. My cousin was like, just take them, because this is really not the time to try and muscle through that. If you're anxious, the anxiety is going to make you feel worse. It really will make you sicker. So if you have a prescription, just take it. So that's what I was doing. I was basically dosing round the clock with Tylenol under the guidance of a doctor, and taking Xanax, and that was it. But like the Tylenol would last, it's supposed to last, minimum 4 hours. By the 3-hour mark, I knew it was done. My body was in pain. Like I would wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning in pain and just have to wait it out.
So you lost your sense of taste. Did you also lose your sense of smell?
Eventually. So I can't tell you exactly when, but in the days that I had the fevers, I was really out of it, obviously. So I don't know when it happened, but sometime in the course of that weekend, I realized I couldn't smell anything. So, which had never, ever happened to me before. So I started purposely like lighting candles that are in my house that are really, really scented, just to see, like I'd let it burn for an hour, stick my face in it. I couldn't smell anything, couldn't taste anything. So that was truly bizarre.
I have a couple questions. Well, the one thing I think is important about your story is a lot of times we hear that the loss of appetite, loss of smell comes first, right? That's a lot of stories that I've read. That comes first. And the fever comes first, and then the muscle aches. But all of your symptoms are not in that order that we've read about, which goes to show you this virus hits everyone differently.
Yeah, we're all like snowflakes, man. Like what hits me one way is going to hit you differently, and my body's not your body. So I know people, that have recovered extremely quickly and, been sick for a week and then started having negative tests one after another. So their body just shed it fast. That has not been the case for me. I'm still coming up positive. So, and we're talking about well over a month ago.
So let's talk about testing. When did you first get tested?
So my first test was on April 4th. And that was basically the day after I'd started to feel better. I didn't have access to being tested because there were really strict restrictions when I first got sick. I didn't meet any of the requirements. I wasn't an emergency service worker. I wasn't old enough to be tested. I don't have a compromised immune system. I wasn't meeting any of that criteria. So my only option at that time was to pay $150 to go get tested somewhere. And I was not going to do that. I was okay. I was at home. So when I was able to finally start getting tested, I think Amelia Earhart, which is the closest facility to me, began their testing on April 1st. So I called on April 1st. I got an appointment for the 4th and went out there. And they swab, pretty uncomfortable, I'm not going to lie. And then I got a call 3 days later with a negative result. So I've been reading that the test has a huge percentage of false negatives. Not false positives, but false negatives. So I called my cousin and we talked about it, and she's like, if you want to get retested, that's a reasonable thing to want to do in your case because I'm pretty sure you had it. She's like, it's possible you didn't have it, but we'll know for sure if you get 2 negatives. I was like, all right. So I went on April 7th and got the second test done. Within a day or two, they called me to say that it was positive, which I was expecting. And so the person who spoke to me told me at that point that I should continue to quarantine, self-isolate for another 2 weeks, and then go back and retest, which I did. Haven't left my home for weeks at this point. I just doubled down. And on the 21st, which was last Tuesday, I believe,
Yep.
I went and got retested, and they called me within 2 days to say that I was still positive.
Wow.
So I spoke to the woman at the time because they basically connect you with a case manager. So I keep speaking to the same person. And she told me, some people, their body gets it out really quickly for whatever reason. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Some people are testing positive for live virus and antibodies. And then some people are just still fighting it off. So I haven't been able to be tested for antibodies yet because I think that's still kind of like a randomly chosen thing. But I do keep coming up positive for having a live virus. So, honestly, had I not decided to go get retested, I probably would have gone back out into the world thinking like, all right, I'm good. I'm not going to get it again. So I can go, be the person that runs all the errands for my family members and go hug my mom and go visit my grandmother and, do all the things that you want to do when you haven't seen people in weeks. But I'm really glad that I went and got retested because I am definitely still contagious.
Yeah, I think before this all started, at some point we talked, I don't know through what means or what have you, but you were worried about bringing it to your mom or bringing it to your family members. Mm-hmm. That was a concern of yours, and certainly it must be now because you feel almost back to normal and probably want to start re-engaging with your family. But if you keep coming up positive, the best thing to do is to hunker down. So that's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, it's extremely frustrating for my family because my mom, when I got the first test done, she's like, you're going to be negative now. It's great. You're going to be able to come over and hug me and hang out here because they're bored. My parents are in their 60s. My mom has a compromised immune system. So she's one of those people that really has to self-isolate. And, she misses her kids. She misses her grandkids. She wants to see people. And she just can't. So part of the reason I wrote the post is because every time I would mention to, I'm telling my friends and my family, like, hey, I'm still positive. I can't I can't leave the house or whatever. They're getting really angry because they don't understand the longevity of this virus in some people because they don't really seem to be reporting on that too much.
Yeah, well, I guess the only thing we know is, or that we hear over and over again, if you test positive, it's 2 weeks. You're quarantined for 2 weeks. But for you, obviously, you've been going for this. We're talking about more than a month now, right?
Yeah.
From that first Sunday night of not feeling okay to going through it all. We're talking a month out, and you're still
Plus.
testing positive.
Mhm.
Now, there's no way to really tell what your viral load is, and if you're really shedding that much, that would be harmful. But you have to be rather be safe than sorry. So,
Of course.
what have they told you about when you can be clear, when you're clear?
When you get a double negative.
Oh, okay. So you're
That's
gonna have to go get tested again.
yeah. And their recommendation at this point is just like, we would go a week at a time if we were you. But I mean, as long as everyone is still quarantining, I'm going to continue to quarantine, obviously. But I don't know how fruitful it is for me to go every week and potentially get another positive and just become more anxious about it.
Right.
Because that's another thing. I have my own anxiety to deal with about the whole situation.
Of
So
course.
for me personally, I think I'm going to just continue going every 2 weeks for now.
All right.
And we'll see what happens with the next test.
Obviously, you talked about the antibodies, and I know a friend of mine's an ER doc in the memorial system, and like he put out the word last night. They're looking for plasma donors. They're looking for anyone that might have been through this that could possibly help. Is that something you would think about if you got the okay to do that?
Yeah, I would think about it. I'm not the easiest person to draw from because my veins tend to collapse. you know,
Yeah, I'm
so
with you.
I would let them try, but I don't know how well it would go for them. But yeah, I think anybody who is young and healthy again should definitely consider it. People need it.
So let's get to the big picture. Two more questions, which is, what is the takeaway? What would you want people to know? What's your message to everyone seeing this about your experience, just about the virus, about how it compares to what you read or what you knew, and all of that stuff?
Well, I think it definitely differs for everyone. I understand that some people might have experience with people in their lives where it's come and gone very quickly, hasn't been a huge issue in their lives. Maybe they had sniffles. For some people, it's a very long process, as it seems to be for me. And thankfully, I'm very grateful that my symptoms weren't worse than they are and that I was able to recover quickly. But I'm still shedding virus. So even if you think you're in the clear, you actually may not be. So my biggest concern is for as things start to reopen, even with the quote unquote soft opens that they're doing now, people really do need to be on guard. Not that they're not, but
Yeah, it's weird. We've gotten to the point, I've become errand boy for the family because the wife is teaching virtually, the kid is learning virtually, at least he's supposed to be, and so if something has to be, we have to go find something at Walgreens or Publix or whatever. I'm that guy, and I wear my mask. I'm a hypochondriac with overly emotional
right.
anxiety. I'm a
hmm
mess. So I've got
Which
seven
is
pair.
probably serving you really well right now.
Right, right. Well, I get it all from my mom, who's all of that plus OCD.
hmm
So I basically have said that I've been in training for this since the womb,
Right.
because she has a closet full of Clorox wipes for the last 20 years and what have you. So I'm basically dressed like I'm going in to find ET every time I go to the store, but I'll see somebody without a mask. I'll see someone that like has the mask around their chin, so that's not helping anything. I'll see people not really adhering to the 6 foot pieces of tape that they have it everywhere, and it's bothering me because they may be like, "Hey, I'm Cavalier Man. I don't need this crap," but I don't think people understand the reason why we have all of these things that we're doing: the social distancing, the quarantining, the masks, all that stuff, is to prevent other people from getting sick. It's not for you, it's for them. So someone like you, who at this point we might consider asymptomatic, is still shedding virus. So if you went out to Publix and just started coughing on the bananas, there's
Right.
that's people are going to get sick.
Yeah. My takeaway from all of that, honestly, is you can only control your own actions. Darwinism will take over once again. We'll see what happens to those people who, I really hope no one gets sick. I hate the news reports of people dying on a daily basis. It's obviously horrendous. And not to say that those people weren't being careful, but those people that aren't being careful, my biggest fear in all of this is that I'm going to inadvertently infect someone, because that's extremely likely if I start leaving the house.
Yeah, especially with this virus, not to get too technical, but the R naught number, which is the number of people infected by everyone that has the virus. The flu is one person. Everyone that has the flu is one person. With the COVID-19, it's as much as 3 people. So when you start extrapolating that become, you affect 3 people who affect 9 people, and we start doing math that I can't do because I didn't go that far in school, but it's okay.
You're in radio. You don't need to.
Well, not anymore. Thank God. So you were the smart one. Got out on your own. Good job. But what did you? This is the deep question. What did you learn about yourself and your resiliency and your ability to kind of fight through this? Because it sounds like there were definitely days that you were probably questioning a lot of things.
Yeah. I learned that I need people a lot more than I think I do. My family, my sister, especially my sister, was FaceTiming me 7 times a day, which seems insane. But when someone's really ill and they're on their own and you can't communicate with them any other way, she was like a lifeline, my main lifeline to the outside world. And I also had friends who were constantly checking in. Do I need food? Did I need toilet paper? What do I need? They're going to the store. And so I was having deliveries on a consistent basis. I had more food than I could possibly eat. That community of people, I feel like I cashed in on a lot of really good karma, because they really kept me going.
Yeah, no, it's important. I think you talked about your anxiety and what have you, but the psychological and mental and emotional aspect of this is going to take a toll on a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. Because you're not just sick with a flu. Right. You're sick with the unknown. And it is a really bad flu. But there's so many questions about, can I get reinfected? How long is this going to last? How do I know if I'm really not breathing properly? Is it anxiety? Is it this? Is it that? That really wears on you. And it's more exhausting at times than the virus itself. I still have moments where if I'm feeling a little lethargic, I start to freak out. And I'm fine. You're speaking to me. Do I look ill in any way, shape, or form?
Do not look ill.
Right. And it's just because it's just constantly running in the back of my mind. Can I get sick from this again because I'm still positive? Is it possible?
All right. Well, we're glad that your cheeks look rosy. That's a good sign of a healthy person. So that's good. We're glad you made it through this. We're still upset that you didn't join us for our binge drinking on Zoom, but to be resumed down the line at some point.
I was elbow deep.
Yeah, no,
at that point, so there was no way.
I think the response was "Oh, I've got work to do," and I'm like, "Work? Who's doing work right now?" But that's right, okay. Yeah. By the way, you have a new job. You were your employers understanding? How did that all work?
My boss has been phenomenal from the very beginning. We were already all set up to work from home because that's just what he prefers.
Right.
He's a small business owner, so if we need to take a day or whatever, he's extremely flexible and very understanding. And so this entire time, his concern was really just for my well-being. I tried to work the first week, and he's like, don't even bother. It's fine. You're sick. You need to rest. He's like, if you need to spend the entire day in your bed and just recover, that's what you need to do. It'll take as long as it takes. And I was extremely grateful because it took a whole load of stress off my back. Because obviously it's new-ish. I've only been there so long. I don't want to not pull my weight when everyone's trying to work from home. But there came a point where I just couldn't do anything but lay in bed.
For the people that are watching this, don't understand that we worked hand in hand together for a good 7 years. And as I kept, for some reason, getting promoted, which was a bad idea on their part, my relationship with you work-wise became more important. Just for the people watching, please describe the daily experience of working with the Beast.
Oh, my God. So much fear and neurosis wrapped in a ball. So much worry and unknown. That's basically what it was. Like a little nervous hamster who's just constantly asking for help. Didn't really need it most of the time and was just like way overdoing it. But, you have your charms. You're fun to be around.
I've never had so much affinity for someone that scares the living shit out of me as much as you.
That was really unintentional, but okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could lay on my therapist's sofa and talk about my fear of women, but that's a whole different story.
We can do that another episode.
Yeah,
if you'd like.
It's a whole nother episode. Well, Vickie, thanks for joining us. We're so happy that you're on the mend, that you're on the way to recovery. Thanks. And most importantly, I just want to thank you for sharing your story. I think it's really important that people hear from people that actually went through this experience, and know that there's other people out there. There might be people that are in your exact circumstance right now, in bed, with the chills, with the body aches, and have the same anxiety that you do, and to know that you came out on the other side is really going to help them power through as well. So thank you so much for sharing.
You're very, very welcome.
All right, there you go. Vickie Aguirre. We could, trust me, we could definitely do that YouTube video where she goes through my entire psychosis, my brain. She knows me almost better than anyone in my family. And that would probably be pretty entertaining and cathartic and also embarrassing and probably ruin half of my relationships in life. So there you go. But thank you, Vickie, so much. We love the fact that you're better. There's so many of us that love and care about you, and we're so glad that you have gotten to the other side of this. So thank you for sharing your story. All right, peeps, that'll do it for me this time. Don't forget to please share, follow, subscribe, all of that stuff. Hit the little bell, all of that stuff. Please do it. Please. The computer's shaking. I will see you next time on The Beast On. Peace.